I spent 5 weeks in South Africa over Christmas and New Year's together with my boyfriend. We traveled around the country, surfed at different beginner surf spots and saw some of the most famous and beautiful attractions in South Africa that I want to share with you if you're also planning a trip to South Africa. There are so many beautiful places to visit in South Africa, and it's one of the most, if not the most beautiful country I've ever visited. In this video, I will let you follow along from day 1 of our trip to the last day of our trip so that you can get an understanding of the route we traveled and what places we stayed at. I will share the highlights from the different cities and towns we went to, and I will also share a bit about my surfing experience in South Africa as a beginner surfer, since that's what my channel is mainly about, beginner surfing tips. I surfed at 3 different spots during this trip, and the one I will talk about last was my favorite spot. It's also a spot that I don't think is the typical surf spot you think about when you plan a trip to South Africa. At least I didn't know about this spot until we went there for the first time. Before jumping into the video, here is a short sneak peek of what our trip looked like. We started our trip in Cape Town, where we explored this beautiful city that has a great mix of everything. City life, stunning beaches, and beautiful nature. Out of the things we did, what I liked the most was hiking up Lion's Head and admiring the beautiful view from there, taking a tour around the Cape of Good Hope, and doing day trips to Stellenbosch. We had a fancy dinner at a restaurant called Kruger in Stellenbosch, and that was definitely a highlight of our trip. The food was so good, and the restaurant had beautiful views over the Stellenbosch landscape with vineyards and mountains and the sunset. While I'm on the food topic, another super nice restaurant in Stellenbosch that we went to twice for lunch is the Rast and Brede Wine Estate. Excuse the pronunciation. Highly recommend it. Great wine, great food, and beautiful surroundings. I also love the white Clifton beaches in Cape Town, all the cozy brunch spots in the Greenpoint area like the Strangers Club, the City Farm and Market, and of course surfing at Muizenberg Beach. Muizenberg Beach is the most well-known and best beginner surf spot in Cape Town. The reason it's good for beginners is because the waves here are mostly soft and mellow, and the bottom is sand, so if you fall, you land on soft sand. This spot is also known as a beginner surf spot, so people know that beginners come here and they are more understanding towards beginners, compared to if you would go to some other spots that are not recognized as beginner surf spots. As a complete beginner, you can surf in the white water, close to the beach, where you can also stand. If you have some previous surfing experience and want to catch unbroken waves, then you can paddle out a bit. As a complete beginner, I recommend you to take a surfing lesson. I surfed with Surf Emporium and I was really happy with them. I think I paid around 25 euros for a private lesson that was 2 hours long with everything included. The water temperature in Cape Town depends on what beach you go to, so at Muizenberg Beach I don't think the water is that cold. Definitely not as cold as at some other beaches in Cape Town, but I still recommend wearing a wetsuit. Most people do. Also, if you're a female surfer looking to find people to surf with in Muizenberg, you can follow Backline Babes on Instagram, shoot them a message and ask to join their WhatsApp group. The group has over 300 members and is used to plan surf sessions and talk about all things surfing in Muizenberg. Even if I never joined any of the surf sessions myself, it was a great group to follow the current surf conditions, shark alerts, and other useful information that was shared in the group and discussed in the group. Personal preference here, but I did not love staying in Muizenberg. I liked the surf, of course, and I loved our accommodation in Muizenberg, but I just don't like the area. It's quite windy, a little bit rough, and not so cozy. I like staying in an area called Greenpoint instead and take the car to Musenberg, even if it was like a 30-minute drive. Apart from Musenberg, Big Bay is another surf spot in Cape Town that is suitable for beginners, but I haven't surfed there myself. After spending 2 weeks in Cape Town, we took a flight up north to Hoedspruit Airport, which is located near the Kruger National Park. We stayed at a hotel called Unembeza Lodge and Spa. Even if it was the most expensive accommodation during our trip, the price was so worth it in my opinion. I wouldn't even say it was that expensive considering how nice our stay was. We paid around 180 euros per night and we had a big room with both an indoor and an outdoor shower and a private terrace in the middle of the forest where different animals would come and visit from time to time. A bit scary not knowing what will come and visit you out there, but I think this is the case for most accommodations in the Kruger Park. You just have to be a bit careful, I guess. We also had a nice shared pool, a viewpoint that you could spot giraffes from, and a common area for breakfast and dinner. The dinner here was something else. It was some of the best food I've ever had in my life. I would seriously go back only for their food and their homemade bread because it was so good. Apart from the food, the highlights from our 1 week stay in the Kruger Park was of course the safari in the Kruger Park because that was the main reason we wanted to go here, and also going to the Maholo Holo Wildlife Rehabilitation Center and driving along the famous panorama route where we stopped at different well-known spots like the Blythe River Canyon and the Berlin Waterfalls. I'm just gonna let the coming clips from our stay in the Kruger Park speak for themselves. After spending a week in the Kruger Park, we jumped on a flight and flew to Port Elizabeth. From there, we had a transfer book that took us to Jeffreys Bay. Jeffreys Bay is a popular surf town and we stayed here for a week to take surf lessons and surf as much as possible. We stayed at the Surf Lodge, which is a villa and a surf camp located right by the beach. The area is beautiful and the villa is simple but very affordable. I think we paid around 600 or 700 euros per person for a double room, and that also included breakfast, a barbecue night, surf lessons, transport to the surf lessons, and a surprise day trip. It's a great spot, just don't expect luxury. It's a bit worn with older furniture and it could use some freshening up. That said, it has a laid-back and social vibe that makes it perfect for young solo travelers and surfers looking for a budget-friendly stay. So, about the surf, we didn't surf where we lived. I think that's because the beach where we live didn't work very well during the season we were there. Instead, we would drive into town where the surf school is located and from there walk to the beach. The first day I surfed in the whitewater. It was extremely cold, so after the first lesson I had to go and buy wetsuit booties. The following days the water wasn't as cold though, so I didn't really need the booties anymore. Apparently the water temperature shifts a lot from day to day and the water is usually colder during the summer months. The rest of the week I went out to the lineup and I did fine on one of the days when the conditions were not too big. I even saw dolphins next to me in the water, which was such an amazing experience. But the rest of the days I was struggling a lot. The paddle out to the lineup is quite long, so I was exhausted before even reaching the lineup. This is why you need to go to the gym if you don't surf on a regular basis, otherwise you're gonna struggle with paddling like I did. The waves were also quite strong. We were a big group of people surfing, taking turns getting help from the teacher, so you didn't really get that many tries during a lesson. So yeah, I kind of wish I would have stayed in the whitewater and just practice my pop-ups or maybe hired a private surf coach to get some more attention. I think Jeffreys Bay is okay for beginners, but I've definitely surfed at other spots in the world that are much more beginner friendly. I think you can go there as a beginner, just don't expect these mellow baby waves. It's a little bit more challenging than that. At least it was when I was there. I would rather recommend Muizenberg in Cape Town for beginners or the next spot in this video that I'm gonna talk about. Apart from surfing, there are plenty of other activities you can do in Jeffreys Bay or around Jeffreys Bay. There are lots and lots of surf shops and outlets in the town, some cozy cafes and scenic outdoor areas and attractions. Here are some of the highlights. So next, after a week of surfing and exploring Jeffreys Bay, we rented a car and did a little road trip during the last week of our trip. To be more precise, we drove along the famous garden route where we started in Jeffreys Bay, obviously, and drove down to Cape Town where we started our trip. During this week of road tripping, we did some stops along the way, of course, so we didn't just drive straight back to Cape Town. I highly recommend the garden route. We discovered and saw some of the best things during our South Africa trip during this week. Our first stop was Storms River. We spent about an hour or two walking around there, and then we took the car and drove to Knysna, where we stayed in a cozy cabin for a couple of nights. We had a very pretty garden with a dog and chickens roaming around. I would start my mornings with some coffee and doing some yoga outside, and then we would spend the days doing day trips to Knysna and to the nearby town Plettenberg. I fell in love with Plettenberg. It's definitely somewhere I could see myself living, especially during the colder months in Europe, just escaping the cold here in Europe for a couple of months. The nature around both Knysna and Plettenberg was amazing. The beaches were beautiful and many places were quite empty. There were a couple of very beginner-friendly surf spots around here and the houses were amazing. This is actually where I found my little gem of a surf spot as a beginner. This is the third and last surf spot I will be talking about in this video, and it was also my favorite surf spot. I was honestly a bit bummed after a week of surfing in Jeffreys Bay because I found it quite difficult and I felt like I didn't really progress during that week. But when I found Buffalo's Bay Beach in Knysna, that is when I finally started to actually progress a bit. The waves here were gentle and small, and I managed to catch many unbroken waves by myself here, so I was very happy when surfing here. I stayed quite close to the beach, so I didn't go out to the lineup where the waves were a bit bigger, but it was still possible to catch unbroken waves close to the beach. They were just quite tiny, but that was perfect for me. I rented my board from Buff's Surf School. They are located right by the beach, but they are not always there, so it's good to message them the day before so you can check if they are gonna be there. If not, you can also rent surfboards from Kif Surfboards. They are located about a 5-minute drive from the beach, so you need a car to transport the board from the rental place to the beach. Or maybe they can help you out if you message them the day before and ask. I think that these places are family owned, so it's good to message them at least the day before to ask if they're going to be open, and so that they have time to get the type of board you want to surf, because the options are sometimes a bit limited and I think they might be borrowing boards from each other sometimes. Not sure about that, but it just felt like it. It's not like in these bigger surf towns where you can just walk down the beach, ask for a surfing lesson right away and a board to rent. It's a little bit different than that, and you need a bit more planning here. It's more of a local spot and not so touristy, so I think that most people that surf here have their own board. But I really recommend this spot. It's very beginner friendly, there is not a lot of people in the water, so you have plenty of space to practice. It's not just that this spot is beginner friendly and calm, it also is very clean and it has this cozy vibe that I didn't really get from neither Muizenberg in Cape Town or Jeffreys Bay. Apart from surfing, we also explored nearby places like Monkeyland, which is a sanctuary for monkeys. There were so many cute and curious monkeys there, I loved it. And we just drove around and stopped at places that looked nice. After a few days in Nysna and Plettenberg, we drove to Swellendam and we stayed there for one night. We didn't really explore anything there because we were only there for one night and we were just really tired. And the next day we went back to Cape Town to have a day there before we flew back the following day to Europe. I hope this video was helpful if you're planning a trip to South Africa and you want to mix surfing with some other activities. I've put together a PDF that outlines the route we took during this South Africa trip, how many nights we stayed at each place, what accommodation we stayed at, and I've also listed the different activities I recommend you to do if you want to travel the same route as we did. I've also done a rough price breakdown of this trip so you can get an idea of how much 5 weeks in South Africa might cost if you want to do the same activities as we did and travel the same route as we did. You can access the link to the PDF download page in the link down below. Thank you for watching all the way until the end, and I hope to see you in the next video.